in Red Cross or private donations. That seems to be what COGAT is suggesting. And wasn't there also use of the military road at some point for aid deliveries? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, Egyptian and Palestinian Red Crescent coordinate with us. So the number of trucks that we report on does include that. We have seen, as you have, some kind of commercial operation done by the Israelis. I think you will recall what has been referred to the Flower Massacre, which was one such operation that ended in tragedy. We have humanitarian experience and expertise to stand up a proper, principled humanitarian operation, and that is what we intend to continue to do. It is there, and we are not leaving Rafah, as James said. That goes for all of us. We intend to stay as long as is humanly possible.
Thank you. Unless Alex wants to add something now, so let's go to Nick.
Yeah, thank you. For Jens, I take your point that the Erez crossing is no substitute for Rafah and Kerem Shalom. Could you just give us an idea of what aid is coming through that particular crossing point? Can you also give us an update on the maritime deliveries on the floating pier? And again, you've said before that this is no substitute, but it would just be useful to know where we are with that and if we can see aid coming in via that route anytime soon. And just as a quick side note to Alessandra, it'd be good if the UN Women could actually circulate this report. We haven't seen it. It'd be great to have it. Thanks.
Just quickly answering this, we have sent it. In fact, both of me and Solange have sent it to you during the briefing, so you should have it in your email. And of course, our colleagues are available for questions. It's not a report, it's a press release with updated data. Jens.
Thank you. I hope the microphone is in the right position now. Thank you, Nick. Can I add that request to what Isabel asked about on the numbers of trucks or what we know has gone through Erez? It's not data I have in front of me, but I'll be happy to investigate that. As to the pier and the maritime corridor, it's not functioning yet. We are not the ones building it, so you'll have to talk to the US authorities about that.
Yep. Sorry, I thought it's the hand in the room. Yeah, Isabel. Oh, but maybe. Yeah, sorry. It's a follow-up. Okay, go ahead.
If you can comment, Ravina, what all this means in human rights terms in Rafah, what is happening now.
Thanks, Isabella. I think my colleagues have very clearly set out what this means in humanitarian terms. It means that people are being forcibly relocated yet again, sometimes for the fourth, fifth, sixth time, to places that are not safe. And let us remember that these people include people who have been disabled as a result of the conduct of hostilities. This includes people who need dialysis treatment, otherwise they will die. They are being relocated to places that do not have the infrastructure or the resources to be able to host the mass displacement of this large number of people with such diverse needs. International humanitarian law prohibits the ordering of the displacement of civilians for reasons related to the conflict unless the security of the civilians involved or imperative military reasons so demand. Even then, this is subject to strict legal requirements, and Israel has strict obligations under international humanitarian law to ensure the safety and access of these individuals to medical care, to adequate food, to safe water, to sanitation. Failure to meet these obligations may amount to forced displacement, which is a war crime.
Yeah, I'd like to, Isabel, the last one, please.
Yes, I'll follow up. So it means that, as you said, the evacuations in this type of evacuations are prohibited unless completely necessary, which is not the case. So one more time is given your review, Israel is violating the international humanitarian law.
There are strong indications that this is being conducted in violation of international humanitarian law.
Thank you. Yuri.
Yes, thank you, Alessandra, and good morning, everyone. My question is for Ravina, so thank you to come to the podium for that. The first question is about the fact that you still don't have access to Gaza, even if you are required it. All the warnings from your office and from the High Commissioner have been ignored by Israel without exception. All what you said has been ignored. What is the next step? So at what point will the notion of war crime be surpassed in the language elements of your office to speak of crimes against humanity? Because nothing changed even when you are putting warnings. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the question, Yuri. Indeed, it's a source of immense frustration for us, the lack of access to be able to physically be there and corroborate information, interview witnesses, visit sites, examine the actual, situation on the ground. We are continuing to press for access. This is crucial. We are also continuing to carry out remote monitoring and put out information that we are managing to corroborate to try to bring some factual clarity, some legal clarity, and perhaps even some moral clarity to what is happening here. On situations like the discovery of the mass graves, what we were concerned about is that this will be yet another blip on the radar, yet more violations carried out in Gaza that just get forgotten about over time. Well, these violations should not get forgotten about. They need to be recorded. They need to be reported widely by the media. They need to result in pressure from member states that do have leverage over the parties to the conflict to bring such violations to an end. They need to be recorded so that there will be accountability, so that investigations do take place and ultimately there is accountability and the cycle of impunity does not continue over and over and over again as we have seen it. We have documented many violations that amount to war crimes and that there are even indications of further atrocity crimes being committed. And it is our obligation and our duty to continue to speak out on these issues.
Lisa?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone. This is very sobering discussion, I must say. Ravina, I'd like to ask you about the mass graves, whether it is clearly determined that Israel, in fact, has dug these mass graves. I ask this because Israel just the other day came out with a release saying that the mass graves were dug by Gazans themselves before Israel's operation began. So I'd like your input on that. And also, is this still to be determined? And then how likely is it that an independent investigation will go ahead in the medium term, or is this something for the long term? Because do you believe that forensic experts will be given access to the area right now? How long is this likely to happen?
Thanks, Lisa. It is a complex issue. So as I said earlier, it is clear that mass graves exist, not only in the compounds of Al-Shifa and Nasser Hospital, but there are impromptu graves containing large numbers of bodies that exist across Gaza. A lot of people have been killed. More than 30,000 people have been killed. Graves are dug very quickly. People are buried. And these graves exist, in many parts of Gaza. What is worrying about this one in particular is that there's a large number of individuals in these graves who are unidentified. So their loved ones did not know whether they were alive or dead, and it's not clear the circumstances under which they were killed. Some of these graves they did exist and there were bodies there. The IDF claims that they dug up the bodies and they reburied them. It's not clear how many bodies were there initially, how many bodies were buried by the IDF. There are so many open questions here. And again, there are very worrying reports that indicate that some of the bodies may have been found with their hands tied. Now, we don't know. We haven't managed to corroborate these reports, but they are severe enough that we need to insist on an independent investigation. These claims cannot simply be dismissed, and we can't just take their word for it, that these were all bodies that were already pre-existing, dug up, and then reburied with respect. There needs to be an investigation. There need to be independent assessment of the situation, and this is what we are insisting on.
Satoko?
Hello, good morning. I just want to follow up this international investigation. Which UN body or institution would be appropriate to create a mandate to set up an international investigation? Thank you.
Alessandra may have more to add on that. From our side, what we are calling for, well, we're calling for access for us, for the UN Human Rights Office. We are calling for access for the Commission of Inquiry, the UN Commission of Inquiry on the occupied Palestinian territory. And as you may know, the ICC, the International Criminal Court, is also engaged on the situation. And there are ongoing investigations there.
Exactly, you said it all. Jan?
Yes, good morning. Thank you for giving me the floor. Question to Jens. Maybe you have said it, or I missed it. I was wondering, have the Israelis given you any official reason for closing the two crossings into Rafah?
Hi, Jan. No, not particularly, but it's part of the zone that they have now issued evacuation order for, but we have not gotten anything apart from that it's closed.
Second question from Nick.
Yeah, thank you. Question to Ravina and Margaret. There were reports last week that the former head of orthopedics at Al-Shifa, Dr. Al-Bursh, had died in Israeli custody. Have either of you been able to get any further information on the circumstances or cause of his death? Thank you.
No, I'm afraid not, Nick, but let me check if colleagues have managed to gather any further information on this. I'll get back to you.
And Margaret makes a no sign, so yeah. Well, you want to say something? No?
Likewise, I'll follow up for you, Nick, and I will see if we've got more information on this tragedy.
Thank you very much. Katrine.
Yes, good morning to all. Thank you, Alessandra. Two questions my side. A follow-up about question already asked about, according to you, Alessandra, which entity at the UN is able to take any decision regarding the fact that Israel is systematically refusing the request of access to visit Gaza to heads of agencies, not only human rights, but other heads of agencies have requested to go and visit Gaza and West Bank, and they haven't got a positive answer. They got no answer, in fact. And I'd like also to come back to the West Bank. Could you tell us more about the situation in the West Bank? I don't know, Jens or James or Margaret, any of you, because we know that some people from Gaza are trapped in the West Bank since the beginning of the events in October. What about Ravina? What's happening there? Because people are focused on Gaza, but there's a lot of things happening apparently in West Bank. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you, Katrina. I don't think I have anything to add to what Ravina said about the bodies. I just wanted to mention that Filippo Lazzarini was indeed denied access. That was on the 5th of May, and he put out a statement, again, asking for that access and concluding that the denial of humanitarian access is a violation of humanitarian law. But I think Ravina mentioned the bodies, and maybe, I don't know who would like to take up the second part of the question about the West Bank. Maybe Jens, you want to start on this, or maybe James, if you also have something on the children in that area.
Just very quickly, first of all, thanks, Catherine, for raising the West Bank, because it is not as much in focus, and it should be, because things are happening there as well. You will see in our situation reports that come out 3 times a week. As you know, there's a new one online this morning. There is a section about what is going on in the West Bank. A lot of it has to do with settler violence, which has seen a spike in recent times, and we do see reports of buildings and structures inside refugee camps in the West Bank being bulldozed. But I will refer you to our report for details.
Oh, sorry.
No, I will get more recent information, remind me, but certainly if we look at the data that UNICEF got from the end of last year, there were, in fact, in the last 12 weeks of 2023, 83 children killed in the West Bank. That was more than double all children killed the year previous to that. So we are seeing spikes in children being killed across the occupied territories.
Yeah, Ravina, and then Margaret.
Yeah, I'm reading our latest update. Thank you, Catherine, for that question, because obviously the situation in the West Bank also remains very difficult for the Palestinians living there. We have verified that since the 7th of October and until the 6th of May, 475 Palestinians were killed in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem. The data that we have suggests that of these, 120 are children. We are also continuing to receive reports of settler violence, continuing to receive reports of arbitrary arrest, detention, and ill treatment, as well as restrictions of freedom of expression, movement restrictions as well.
And just to add, we've recorded very high numbers of attacks on healthcare. We have recorded at least 446 attacks, which have resulted in 12 fatalities and 95 injuries. Now, it should be noted that also in Israel, there have been 68 attacks on healthcare with 24 deaths and 34 injuries.
Thank you very much. And I'm seeing here in the chat if colleagues could give this data on the West Bank in writing at the moment to all journalists, that would be useful. There is also one question in the chat, Jens, I had not seen, from Christian, that just asks whether, the military road to Wadi Gaza, I think, is being used for AIDS. Don't know if you have an answer to that. Military road in brackets.
Sorry. Yeah, and apologies, I forgot that question. I'll have to check. But if Kerem Shalom, which is also a screening point, is closed, the question remains if anything is being screened, right? And it needs to be screened before it gets on the military road to what's called Gate 96 entry point further to the north. But let me double check on that.
Want to say something?
No, it's just an important point that Jens has mentioned, that areas as well, anything that goes through areas has to go through Kerem Shalom. So that's closed, then nothing is being cleared.
Sorry, Catherine.
Yes, this is just to come back to the UN Women press release. It was released yesterday in New York. So
Yeah,
it's
it
Geneva.
did. And yeah, no, exactly. And that's what I said at the beginning when I started reading it. The press release was put out yesterday night. We received it in the evening, and we were asked by our UN women colleagues to flag it to you, which I did, especially that now we were having this briefing on Gaza, Catherine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
But
you
I
very-
mean, for me, my colleagues in New York did already cover it when it comes
Yeah,
to-
probably some.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Some of your media will probably have covered it also from New York. Some others may have not seen it. And that is why basically we are the first UN briefing after that they published it. So they have asked us to flag it. Jeremy, and then maybe we'll go to the next subject. Yes.
Yeah, a quick one for Margaret. I'm reading that 2 hospitals are evacuating the patients in South Rafah, South Gaza. So I'd like to know, is it, you said, I think that Al-Najjar is not evacuating. So just to understand what are your information, which hospitals are evacuating?
Certainly my information from this morning, from my briefing that I got this morning, was that Al-Najjar was currently staying open, even though they were in the zone, and perhaps the European had the same issue. But my understanding was the hospitals would continue functioning, and they're trying to serve their patients as best they can.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all of you, correspondent, but also thanks to all our colleagues here. I'd like to ask Ravina to stay with us as she has another point of brief, and thanks to Margaret, Jens, and James. And again, please be sorry, please be reminded that at 3:30 this afternoon, the Secretary General will speak to the press on the situation in Gaza. So, and it will be on UN Web TV. You want to get a little bit closer for the camera? Sorry, I think they are just more central. Thank you very much, Ravina. So you have another point on Russia and the crackdown on journalists. Quite timely, since the 3rd of May, as we all know, was World Press Freedom Day, and we'll speak about this in a moment. Please.
Exactly, Alessandra. You should have received a press release about an hour ago on Russia. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, is concerned by the increasing number of journalists charged, convicted, and jailed in Russia for their independent reporting in what appears to be an intensification of a crackdown on dissenting voices. The continuous attacks on free speech and the criminalization of independent journalism in Russia is very troubling. Since the start of the invasion of Ukraine on the 24th of February 2022, the number of imprisoned journalists in Russia has reached an all-time high. The crackdown on journalists' independent work must immediately cease, and the right to inform, which is a key component of the right to freedom of expression, needs to be upheld. At least 30 journalists are currently detained in Russia under a variety of criminal charges, and these include charges ranging from terrorism, extremism, disseminating knowingly false information about the armed forces, spying, treason, extortion, infringing upon people's rights, violating the provisions of the law on foreign agents, inciting mass disturbances, illegal possession of explosives, and illegal possession of drugs. Out of the 30 reporters deprived of their liberty, 12 are serving prison sentences ranging from 5.5 to 22 years in prison. Since March, at least 7 journalists have faced administrative or criminal charges, particularly for criticism of Russia's actions in Ukraine or for alleged links to the late opposition politician Alexei Navalny and his anti-corruption foundation. The Russian authorities appear to be attempting to further strengthen control of the narrative, both around domestic issues and around the conduct of hostilities in Ukraine. As a result, people in Russia have increasingly restricted access to non-state information and viewpoints, which hampers their ability to benefit from diverse sources and to make fully informed decisions on matters of vital public interest. We are also concerned about the frequent use of the broad legislative framework to combat terrorism and extremism, and we call on the authorities to amend the legislation to comply fully with principles of legality, necessity, and proportionality under international human rights law. Journalists should be able to work in a safe environment without fear of reprisals. We call on the authorities to immediately drop charges against journalists who have been detained solely for doing their jobs and to release them.
Thank you very much, Ravina. Jeremy.
Thanks, Ravina. We know that several opposition figures have been offered to fight in Ukraine and France, just like many prisoners in Russia. Do you have any information that journalists who are in prison have been offered the same, the same thing?
That's a good question, Jeremy. I don't have specific information on journalists who've been offered the same thing. What is worrying, of course, is the lack of transparency as well with regards to many of these moves. And again, the fact that independent journalism is being cracked down upon, it just leads to a level of uncertainty and facilitates a climate of misinformation, disinformation, chaos, and panic for people who don't know what their rights are in these circumstances. But whether journalists have specifically been targeted on this, I'll check and get back to you if we have information.
Thank you very much. Any other question to Ravina on this particular subject on the room or online? No. Oh yes, Lisa Schlein.
Yeah, thanks, Ravina. How many of the imprisoned journalists are foreign journalists, and are they specifically imprisoned as political hostages, having something to do with the country? Like there are at least one who is very famous in the United States, who is still being held there. There is also someone from Radio Free Europe, I think, who has been held there and so forth. And then I was wondering who are the journalists that are selected for imprisonment? What I mean is that there are some Western journalists from CNN, from other agencies that somehow or other, at least until now, have been able to report there. So I'm wondering, how these people are chosen as to who should be imprisoned and who is to be allowed there. And is it your contention that Russia in general is not a safe place in which to be a journalist? Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. A few points in response to your questions. So as I mentioned, since March, at least 7 journalists have faced administrative or criminal charges. All 7 of these are Russian journalists, and they have faced these charges in relation to their reporting either of the war on Ukraine or in relation to Alexei Navalny, the late opposition leader. On the international journalists, according to recent reports, 12 of the 17 foreign national journalists detained worldwide are in Russia. So 12 foreign national journalists are currently detained in Russia. And on why certain journalists are targeted and others are not, I mean, that really is a question for the Russian authorities, and that I hope you will ask them that question.
Thank you very much. Any other question in the room? I don't see also any. Sorry, Lisa has a follow-up. Pardon.
Yeah, I asked whether Russia is simply not a safe place in which to be a journalist. I mean, are you kind of playing Russian roulette when you go there?
Russia is a place where it is very risky to be a journalist these days. If you are reporting on issues that are very sensitive to the authorities, if a narrative is being challenged, an official narrative is being challenged, particularly with regards to the war on Ukraine. Continuous attacks amount effectively to a criminalization of independent journalism in Russia.
Thank you very much. And before we close this issue, sorry, please let me remind you of an event which is taking place this afternoon at the Palais des Nations. As you may have seen, the World Press Freedom Day this year has been dedicated to the importance of journalism and freedom of expression in the context of the current global environmental crisis. The idea is to highlight the significant role that the press, journalism, and access to information play to ensure and secure a sustainable future that respects the right of individuals, the diversity of their voices, and gender equality. In this context, UNESCO, the liaison office here in Geneva, UNEP, WHO, OHCHR, the permanent mission of Austria to Geneva, the permanent mission of Chile to Geneva, and the Geneva Press Club, together with the UN Geneva, UNOG, organizes an event today from 3 to 6 p.m. in room 23 of the Palais des Nations. This event is really meant to focus on science communication in shaping public understanding and policy making regarding environmental issues. There's a lot to say about safeguarding journalists and scientists, particularly women, against the specific challenges and threats they encounter in the fields related to environmental reporting on environmental issues. Independent journalists and scientists are crucial actors in helping our society separate facts from fiction and take informed decisions in the area of environmental policies, which is particularly important at this time. So we hope we will see you at in room 23 this afternoon at 3 o'clock. The Director General of UN Geneva will open the meeting. Quite a few speakers, I think of very interesting ones. They will speak about combating climate disinformation, also protecting environmental journalists and scientists. So let's see you in room 23 this afternoon. And if there are no other questions on this subject, I thank Ravina very much. I hope you will see you this afternoon. And let me just tell you that the Committee Against Torture will conclude its 79th session next Friday at 10 a.m. They have examined the reports of Austria, Honduras, Azerbaijan, Liechtenstein, North Macedonia, and Finland, and they will publish on Friday the concluding observation of these countries, The Committee on the Rights of the Child is concluding this morning the review of the report of Namibia, and this afternoon will begin consideration of the report of Guatemala. The countries to be examined next are Georgia, Mali, Panama, Egypt, Bhutan, Estonia, and Paraguay. And I think that's all I had for you. I just wanted to also say thank you very much to everyone for the collaboration about the new operational hours at the Palais des Nations. I think this weekend we also already have some colleagues who have been contacting unis to have access. It worked, so let's hope that it continues to work well. And in this regard, let me remind you that as of now, as of last week, in fact, with the information about the week ahead, Solange will also send out the information on who is the senior UNIS officer on duty during the weekend. Last weekend it was Rolando, and we will publish every weekend the information so that you know whom you have to contact during the weekend if you have if you need us. Thank you very much to everyone, and I'll see you on Friday. Thank you.